Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Angel R Talk, and you are listening to the Not Just NYC Talking podcast.
The city of New York, Boricua from the Bronx.
Today, I am joined by a gentleman who I actually am only just meeting for the first time today. I guess if we can call this meeting, because it's this new virtual world. But I've always known you as Latino Town Hall. I had no idea who was behind it. I had no idea is male, female, if it's a group or organization, So, it's good to meet you. This is Joel, and we're going to talk. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on your program. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. See, I'm gonna say that you happen to be I don't know, and from where I live, right? Where I live and what I guess the world I'm in, You're considered a rare thing because you're a Trump supporter, right?
Yeah.
And you happen to be Latino. Where I live and I happen to be, we see that as a rarity. However, I'm not of the one-track mind to believe that that's the case everywhere.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like that's what I've been exposed to, what I've seen may not be the case throughout the entire United States, the world. Whereabouts are you? Where are you from?
I live in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Okay.
Yeah.
And would you say that it's different? What the worldview over there, or I guess the statement, does it hold true where you're at as well, or is it?
It's interesting. Hispanics vary, right, from state to state, depending on where the population comes from, right? So in Florida, you have this strong Cuban immigration there. So those Cubans are really pro-Trump. People who are Mexican like me, where my parents came from Mexico. I was actually born in the United States, but they came from Mexico. So it varies. Here you have a lot of, it's very strong Democratic. Latinos are pushed in that way. But listen, I'm an independent thinker. I went to high school during the Jimmy Carter years from 76 to 80, right? Now I'm aging myself. I'm 58 years old.
Okay.
I voted.
You look good, man. You look good.
And I remember all the issues that happened under a Democratic president from 76 to 80, the hostage situation, the long gas lines, the inflation, all those things happened under Carter. And I was paying attention in high school. And I didn't make up my mind in high school until Ronald Reagan came on the scene in 78, 79.
I see that behind you.
I know I had that up on there on purpose. When he came on the scene, you know what? He started speaking to me right into my heart. I go, I believe what this guy believes. I believe the way he's communicating the values of Americans. Now, my parents were peach orchard labor workers. We went the summers and on the weekends, guess where we were? We were out in the fields, right? Working with our parents. But our parents showed us a hard work ethic, how to work, don't receive anything for free, especially from government. My father never received anything from government.
Wow. And so this is before Trump. This isn't like you just.
Yeah, I want to set up the foundation first because people.
Right.
No.
So what I mean is that you have had conservative values far before Trump. It's not like this was just something that just happened.
No, far before Trump. I was the only conservative out of 6 in my family. All my brother, my sister, my other brothers, they came from college. They came back so liberalized that I became a Christian at the age of 20. Right, gave my life to the Lord at the age of 20, but it wasn't just because I was a conservative before I became a Christian. So for me, I've always had that. It was always in my blood to think that way, and I believe it was values handed down from my parents, but also listening to Ronald Reagan. I haven't been happy with all the Republican candidates. You know what I mean? We had Dole as one of our candidates, and McCain as one of those moderates. I didn't like those moderates. And for me, I've been a true-blooded conservative all my life. And when Trump came on the scene, I go, you know what? We need something different. Government is here to be on top of us. And that's not what the design of our Constitution was. The Constitution's where the people are on top of government, not the government on top of people. I've always believed that. And, you know, with Obamacare and all these things, those are things where government puts stuff on top of us and weighs us down as Americans. The Constitution makes us free. It wasn't meant for us to carry the burdens of government, is what I'm trying to say. So when Trump came along, yeah, I hopped on the Trump train. I'm a happy Trump supporter. Yeah, he's a little rough around the edges, but you know what? He gets things done for evangelicals.
I mean, clearly I speak up against him all the time, right? But I believe if he would just shut up just a little bit, maybe people wouldn't hate him so much. You know, I think that part of I mean, I am no expert in policy, and
Yeah.
people throw numbers at me, and they throw stats, and they say, look what he's done. And I took statistics, and I know that I can maneuver things to reflect my view. I can try to skew things. So I can't claim to know all the exact details of if he's actually created jobs, if jobs have been lost, and all that. But just on a personal level, right?
Yeah.
Just on a likability scale, all that aside, because let's say, for argument's sake, just again, because I just don't know what information to believe. Everything is skewed, but let's just hypothetically speaking say that Trump did great things, right? We'll just for the sake of this point, we'll just say that.
He has. The economy was booming under Trump. We had more Hispanics go to work, more females go to work, more blacks go to work. All the different categories, they all increased in prosperity under Trump until the pandemic hit. But guess what? The economy's coming back. And you know what? When he gets reelected, the economy is going to come back stronger than ever. Hispanics are waking up. They're tired of being told what to think and what to say, not only from the media, but from the Democrats. The Democrats have gone off a ledge, the ledge of insanity. They are crazy people, and for me, Ronald Reagan back, I think in the late 50s says, I didn't leave the Democratic Party, it left me. Can you imagine? That was back in the 50s, early 60s when Ronald Reagan said that. So they've been drifting for over 2 generations. They've been drifting further and further to the left, and now we see them as crazy people.
I can't comment too much on Reagan because he was a little before my time.
Right.
I've seen some videos and audios that were questionable. I can't remember one, but I heard one. But again, people pull out what's convenient for them, right? So I am a reasonable individual. For a period, I was on the Republican side. I started Democrat, and then I moved over to the Republican side. And I used to go to the rallies, and I used to go to these events, and I used to speak at them. And I was finding more and more that I was not agreeing with Republicans on social issues. A lot of social matters were not in line with my views, while some other, like for instance, I'm pro-gun, right? The Democrats fight me on that, but the Republicans were that's initially what drove me over there. But
here's the issue with Democrats, my friend. The Democrats politicize everything. They politicize sex.
But don't you think the Republicans do the same thing? I think they both do.
You show me an instance where we have it's the Democrats that politicize everything. Look, now politics is in the corporate world. It's in sports. Sports is starting to change how they think about BLM and those type of things. That stuff should be totally out of commerce. It should be totally out of entertainment and sports. But everything they do, they politicize. And guess what happens? The ratings go down. The ratings have been down for the NFL. The ratings have been down for the NBA. Whatever they politicize turns against them. They ruin everything they touch. They do. Bro, you got to come back to the Republican Party.
Well, I left the Republican Party and I went independent, right? I just went solo because I didn't like either party. I thought both of them lied to us. Right. I saw a great drawing that said the left and the right are the wings of the same bird.
Right.
And that kind of I kind of understood that. That made sense to me because I don't feel that either side really cares or does the right thing for us. I'll give you an example and tell me what you think about this.
All right.
Let's say um, I'm here illegally. Okay, I'm in the country illegally,
Yeah.
and somehow I get to serve in the country in our military. I serve our nation in our military. I go, I do a tour. I may or may not get physically hurt. I may develop some PTSD, whatever. I come back home, right?
Yeah.
We've deported people like that. Would
Yeah.
you agree with that? Now, I mean, that's been done under Democrat and Republican presidents, right?
Right.
So it's not to say this is a Trump thing that's happening, right? I don't
Right.
do that. Like some people operate like that. They just want to blame Trump for everything. I don't do that. It happened under Obama, and I used to criticize Obama the same for it. You as an individual person, right?
Yeah.
What do you think about that scenario? Like, what are
Well,
your thoughts on that?
listen, that scenario is a hard one, right? Because this person served in our military. They gave their life. They were willing to give their life for our military and fight for our country. Uh, that's a hard one to do. But here's the thing. We have to go back to the root. You're giving me an example that's really hard to argue against. But the root cause of all this, the systemic problem in immigration is that they broke the law. They crossed the border illegally, right? And although they've come in and somehow made it in our country, got whatever IDs to enter into the military or into work or into school, they broke the law. And and obviously, we haven't been really enforcing the laws like we should. And I think to be honest with you, I think Trump's a good guy at heart. He's a little brash on the outside. And I think though that's part of him getting the attention that he needs, where the media always has Trump. Trump's the master of the media because he always is in the media, right?
Yeah.
And
Well, you got to give him that. He certainly knows how to manipulate them and push their buttons.
well,
You
he's a
know.
master marketer. He's a master marketer. He knows how to be on TV every night. So, but back to the immigration issue, back in the day when my parents came over, it was so much easier for them to come over. Did you know that my dad came to the border and people would come to the border? These ranchers in Arizona would come to the border and actually adopt these people, do the paperwork within a few days, cross them over to work in the cotton fields. When it came time for my mom to come over, she drove up from Jalisco in a bus with my older brother, and my dad went to the border with his sponsor, and it took about overnight for them to do the paperwork for my mom and my brother, and they came across the border. Back then, you had these sponsors who needed labor, and they would go find the labor at the border. There were people waiting at the fence at the border, but they weren't crossing over illegally.
Well,
They
let
were,
me ask you about that. Um, when they were bringing them over, were they paying them fair wages? Were they treating them well, or were they bringing them over and then I want to watch my
yeah,
language, but giving them unfair wages and
you're always going to have people that use people, but you're going to have people that are honest. I think the person that my father was lucky to have was a very honest person who actually sheltered my father on the farm, him and my mom. When I was born, they took my mom to the hospital. They really cared for us as a family. They really cared for us. Uh,
I see.
but I think my dad just had a lot of favor. He had a strong work ethic. He was very sharp and shrewd. He knew how to deal with people, and people just fell in love with my dad. And I think that's why they took care of my dad.
Why was it like that then and not
Just
today? I mean, well, I guess it's clearly the work and stuff. The I could see I could see how that could be a problem today. Again because the
it's just
perception of
different
it and
times.
stuff.
It
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah,
as political. If immigration wasn't that a political hot potato like it is now. And like I
yeah.
say, the Democrats ruin everything. Everything they talk about, everything they bring up, they ruin it. They ruin it for people. You were talking about social issues earlier, right?
Yeah.
Um, the Constitution limits the federal government on what they should do, right? Um, and the government should not be involved in every single issue that comes up. But the Democrats, for some reason, bring up all these issues, bring them up to the mainstream of national conversation. And that's why the Republicans at times have to deal with these issues and somehow, come and be against some of these issues because they're unjust. John Adams said this. You know who John Adams was? He was one of the founders, right?
Mm.
He said that the Constitution was made for a moral and religious people. It's totally inadequate for anybody else. What did he mean by that? Because when the framers came together, yeah, there were some deists, but they came together and they put together a system based on what the Greeks had, a structure of government based on the values of Jerusalem, which is biblical values. They brought those two things together and they merged them and they created a very limited form of government. You know why they created a limited form of government? Because they didn't want us to become a kingdom like from what they fled from England, where they had one dictator dictating to everybody. They gave the power to the people. And here's another reason why the Constitution is very limited, because they understood the nature of man. The nature of man is that we are sinful people, fallen short from the glory of God from the very beginning of our birth. We've all sinned, right? So therefore, guess what? What happens when people that are unchecked is they want power. They thirst for power. And that's why the federal government, the Constitution, limits the power of hungry individuals and places it upon the shoulders of the American people. It's the American people that have power in this nation, not the
But
government.
I don't believe that. So I understand what you're
Well, think about
saying, but I
restriction
don't.
of guns. You're a Second Amendment guy. They want to restrict guns.
Well, no, that's what I mean. I don't believe that
They want to
the
limit our
people
speech.
have the power, but I don't believe it from either side. You know what I mean? I don't believe it's just the Democrats or just the Republicans. I believe that each one of those individuals is out for themselves or their own interests or their what's the people who donate to them, you know, their
Yeah,
special interests. I don't believe that the power's with us anymore. I feel like the power's with
yeah.
the
It's
government, you
it's
know,
it's
and even the founding fathers, right? When people talk to me about the founding fathers, and I've had some people get really mad about this with me, but you know, those guys weren't necessarily the most upstanding individuals when they were doing these things. You know, some of them owned slaves. So, I mean, and I know it's a different time and all that, but it doesn't make it right. So when people try to tell me that the founding fathers were the moral whatever, and as soon as you mentioned John Adams and you started mentioning the founding fathers and then you spoke, what was the word you said? Moral and religious society. It's and I'm aware of it. This is
you know
good
why?
that I'm aware of it. But
They frame the Constitution from that mindset, and if you don't have that same mindset, you can't understand the Constitution. The Constitution is a settled document. It is settled once and for all because human nature never changes. Human nature is the same it was then in the 1700s as it is now. We are fallen, we are sinful, and therefore we desire and thirst for power. The Constitution limits the power of elected officials. They're limited on what they can do. So when Obama came with Obamacare, the Constitution doesn't mention a right to health care. It doesn't mention a right to education. It doesn't mention those things, right? Because back then, all they wanted is a very simple form of government that was limited. And then they gave the states power in case certain states wanted certain things. It's the states that have power to do certain things, not the federal government. The federal government's limited on what they can do.
so you're more of the mindset that, for instance, that right to healthcare or um, education should be handled by the states. Am I?
Those are state issues. Those are not federal, like the Department of Education. I can't believe who created it. I think it was Carter, somebody there in the 70s, that, they created this monstrosity. And look at our education system, okay? It used to be in the hands of local localities. The federal government took it over, and now it's all screwed up. We have some of the most illiterate generations of individuals that are coming out of college. You know, a lot of them can't read, they can't write, they don't understand the Constitution, they don't understand our founding. And that's why all this chaos that we're having in our nation right now is a result, I guarantee it's a result of a lot of illiteracy about our nation and its founding, the Constitution. And there's no longer really an intellect. Universities don't put out people with intellect. They put out people with ideology, which is very dangerous. It's a one-sided ideology. They don't help people think and reason anymore. You know what I mean? They force their thinking, their way of thinking onto people, and that's horrible for our society. That we're dealing with the effects of that right now. We see it in our streets and all these riots that are happening. People just don't understand, and they're trained to hate our nation. They're
Yeah,
trained to hate our nation.
that's always a bit of a tricky one for me, you know, because I served, I served the nation. So, and I consider myself, a proud American, but at the same time, I'm not blind to some of the wrong we've done in the world, as a country.
What have we done
Yeah.
wrong?
Well, I mean, I'll take, for instance, I'll use a fairly reasonable one. Um, I didn't feel we belonged in Iraq. And actually, that's one of the reasons I didn't reenlist. My reenlistment was up, and I opted not to reenlist um, because I didn't believe in that action. You know,
Right.
I
Yeah.
just I felt that right there was a move that destabilized the region, created problems, created enemies. A lot of Americans and Iraqi people were hurt, killed, maimed, and I didn't feel so like if we were going into Afghanistan when they were talking about that, I kind of understood that a little better. Had they told me that I was going to likely deploy to Afghanistan, I might have not, stayed out. I might have re-enlisted, but I didn't understand going into Iraq. It didn't make sense to
But
me,
listen,
you
guess what
know?
Trump's doing? He's pulling all these troops out. He's pulling them out of Afghanistan. He's pulling them out. You know why? Because he's tired of America being the police of the world.
Right.
So he's bringing troops home. Trump has not started a war. He finished ISIS. The man is his record. The reason why liberal Democrats hate him is because he's very effective as an outsider. Okay, he's not your traditional politician who, like you said earlier, has been bought by money. He doesn't need anyone to buy him out. He's a
Right.
billionaire.
Well,
But
that was one of the interesting things about seeing him run. Despite I actually, when he was running, I was kind of thinking like, how funny would it be if this guy wins, right?
right,
And then being a New Yorker, he
yeah,
goes and completely takes the opposite political path.
yeah,
Like I was thinking, that was one of the things I was thinking. Like I was like, it would be because I was fighting with all these guys on the right, and I was like, because I didn't like Hillary and I couldn't stand Hillary. So I didn't vote for Hillary. I didn't vote for Trump. I voted for Jill Stein, again, on principle, because I don't like either of the two, right? But I thought to myself, it'll be funny as heck if Trump wins and then he goes and does all the liberal stuff. And
yeah.
of
You
course,
know
he
what?
didn't do
Yeah,
that, which,
but you know what he when he started to say certain things like I'm going to put certain judges, pro-life judges, on the court. He talked about the economy. He talked about us in foreign territories, in war, that I'm going to bring everything he said. He's pretty much accomplished his agenda of what he promised. He made promises. He's kept his promises. Aren't you tired of politicians who make promises but never do anything about them? That's why Trump was elected. It was Obama that helped him get elected, but the people finally came to a crossroads saying, we're tired of the traditional politician. Let's try the businessman. Let's try the corporate CEO, have him come into the White House and be the CEO of our nation. He's been very, very effective. And I'm going to say that as a Hispanic, as a Latino, my parents immigrated from Mexico. Trump is the president, the preferred POTUS for Latinos in America. You're going to see a surge of Latinos. Usually Latinos vote about 29, 28, maybe 30% Republican. You're going to see that maybe pushing 40% in this election. You're going to see the African American community, which usually votes 8, 9, maybe 10% Republican. You're going to see it pushing 20% Republican. I'm going to tell you something. Trump in the last 4 years has built not only coalitions among ethnic communities, minority communities, but all around. Asians are coming around. Different people are coming around. Guess what? He's got the biggest endorsement of police in the nation. Police are fed up with what's happening right now.
Yeah, but you know the even like the NYPD also endorsed him. You know the people who the PVA, I believe it was. That is also because of politics. It's a racial divide. You know, even though cops can be black, white, Latino, you know, it feels like it's either you support the cops or you support BLM, right? Whereas in reality, you should be able to say, that's a good cop, that's a bad cop. That's a criminal who deserved to get arrested, that was abuse. We should be able to determine
and that's why
but,
we can't, you know what? You got a good point. We're not able to determine it because what happens right away before the facts even come out, the Democrats begin to politicize things. We can't get to the facts. The facts become obscured. And guess who comes out to being a bad guy? This is a Marxist way of trying to transform our police force is by doing it in this fashion, by accusation, false accusation without getting to the facts, right? But guess what? They're not going to turn over our police system. Our police system's not going to bend to the will of Marxists who exist in the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party, I'm telling you, they're insane right now. You watch what happens between this podcast and the election and see how the Democrats react.
Maybe even sooner.
It's happening now, but it's going to get even worse before the election.
Yeah, I mean, I'm concerned either way, right? If Trump wins, I know there's going to be an uproar from the left. If Biden wins, there's going to be an uproar from the right. You know, people are we're at such a divided place right now. Like us talking, right? I have friends that will be will take exception to me talking to somebody who's openly supporting Trump. You know, I don't think that way. I think we should talk, whether or not we agree, whether or not we're of the same mindset. I think that we need. How else?
I agree.
You know, how else do we? I'm not one of those extreme people that can't think for myself. You know,
right.
I'll be honest, I'm going to definitely be voting for Biden. I won't be doing third party this time around because I feel like this time around, I can actually affect things one way or the other, you know, whereas that last time I knew no matter what I did, Hillary wins New York, hands down.
If you care about your guns, bro, don't vote for Biden. Don't vote. If you care about your friends, like you said, you're a Second Amendment guy, that issue alone, don't vote for Biden. If you care about babies, preborn babies, and they deserve the right to live, don't vote for Biden. You want your taxes raised? Don't vote for Biden. I mean, bro, I can go on and on and on why right now the Democratic Party is going to dissolve and may even break into two different branches to a very radical element, Marxist, socialist, and maybe a few reasonable liberals and some moderates. I'm telling you,
but that's the same on both sides.
Us register more Democrats than anybody ever in the past.
It's the same. It's the same on both sides.
It's not,
because even before Trump ran, when he was running, I can give you screenshots on my social media right now of people, Republicans, still bashing Trump. there's a splintering there too.
It's very few now. A lot of them change their minds, but see, you're listening to the media because the media is always going to highlight the few people
No, not the
that are
media. I'm talking about people. I'm talking
no.
about like guys like me and you who are talking right now. I know from your posts and seeing your posts, you're a Trump guy. Now I'm gonna know other Republicans who are still every time themselves telling me why they regret voting for Trump or why they were,
You're going to
for
have some fallout, right? You're going to have some fallout, but guess what? The fallout is not greater than what's coming into our party right now. You're going to have Democrats that are not even going to change their registration as Democrats. They're called blue dog Democrats. And those blue dog Democrats are going to vote Republican again, all across America, not just in the industrial states like Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, and even in the coal mine state of Virginia. You're going to see a lot of people cross over more than ever before. The choice is clear.
what makes you say that? Like, what do you see?
Bro, I see it on social media everywhere I go. I was just in a conference in Dallas. People are just excited. Asians, African Americans, Hispanics, no matter where you go to,
But
it's
what
surprising to
exactly
see the people.
like I
Surprising
don't
to see the people that are going for Trump.
like I don't see it. I mean, well, I live in New York,
Yeah,
right?
you
So New
live in New
York,
York.
yeah. I live in New York. So even if a person is a Trump supporter here, they're gonna be on the low because you know how it is, right? If you walk out here with a MAGA hat,
Yeah.
honestly, I mean, I don't agree with it. I think you should be able to wear whatever damn hat you want to wear,
Yeah.
but I don't think it's a safe thing to do.
Yeah.
To be realistic, I don't think it's a
Listen,
safe thing.
there's always been moves, right? Under Nixon, he called it the silent majority. Under Reagan, it was a moral majority. Under Newt Gingrich, when Clinton was elected, it was a contract with America. That was the move, right? And it ushered in this anti-Clinton climate after 2 years. And then the Tea Party came. After Obama did Obamacare, the Tea Party came. Right now, you have the Trump train, and you do have a mixture of all those. You have a silent majority, you have a moral majority, you have the Trump trainers. I mean, you got all kind. He's built a coalition that's really going to defeat the Democrats in the fall. Trump's going to win again, and you'll be surprised what states come for Trump that didn't vote for Trump in 2016.
Well, I'm curious to see.
Bro, let's have another conversation, and then we'll have one right
Yeah.
after the election to kind of review what we've talked about.
Yeah, I'm a bit anxious because I know, I worry that things are going to get ugly either way.
Yeah.
You know,
Bro, I know you have to say you're voting for Biden because this is your podcast and your audience will get mad at you, but I know you're not going to vote for him, bro. When you get in that booth, your conscience is going to kick in. It's going to kick in.
That's not, even when I was a Republican, I was registered I still voted for Obama both times for that very reason you mentioned, because my conscience wouldn't allow me to vote against Obama. I just couldn't do it. It just was in my mind. It was
Because you
like,
didn't understand who he was. He's
well,
the guy with the smile, but he has a knife behind his back.
well, I gave him his share of hell, back then, but I still voted for him because at the end of the day, and again, I am not a political expert, or I'm just a guy who rants and raves, but I've always felt that where when I was coming up, we were poor, we didn't have anything, and I don't think the Republicans are gonna help people like us.
It's not about
It's not
a party helping a party. I think that's a misnomer that many of us, well, what party is going to help me? None of those parties are going to help me. I'm going to help myself.
Well, no, I agree with that. I agree.
Just have to execute the Constitution as it was written. As it was written. That Constitution is a standing Constitution. It's not a breathing Constitution. It's not a Constitution that we can reinterpret because the times are different. That Constitution stands on its feet for eternity.
See, that I have a hard time with because
Bro, you didn't hear what I said.
no,
They
no, I heard what you
understood.
said. You can't. You said that because times are different, we can't interpret it. But I believe we should be able to change it. We should change things on it.
Okay, we amend it,
I-
but the
and
principles that are there then apply today. Free speech is free speech. You know what? Because it's human nature. They understood human nature. They wrote that Constitution based on human nature. Actually, I got a meeting coming up, but I'd love to really continue this conversation down the road.
yeah, for sure.
Is that okay? I appreciate you having me on your
Yeah,
program.
of course. Yeah, I'll we'll be in touch, and we'll see what happens, man. Because
Thank you so much, and thanks for being reasonable. At least we can talk. We can have a conversation.
Yeah, and we should be able to. We should be able to engage, and I think we've both been respectful, and I'd be able to sit down and eat with you and hang out with you. I'm not one of these people who says, "Oh, you're a Trump guy." No, man, I'm not like that. We should be able to engage, and that's the only way to move forward.
Be able to do that, yeah. Okay. Hey, thank you so much.
All right, it's good talking to you. Take care, Joe.
You are listening to the NYC Talking podcast. www.nyctalking.com. Please like NYC Talking on Facebook. Please follow Angel R Talk on Twitter and Instagram. We are NYC Talking, the realest lifestyle blog ever. Thanks for listening.